main way you find a story is by talking to people. It's word of mouth. That is, you meet any journalist in any genre, in any field. The best way to find stories is by talking to people, making contacts. And that can be anything from going into the local coffee shop, the local bar, going into what we call the refectory, the marketplace, just conversations with your friends. Everything can lead to a story. People are talking about it, there's an interest in it. So I think in terms of word of mouth, you've got to go out and know your community, know the area you're operating within, and that will deliver stories. It is the lifeblood of journalism. This is a new one. If that is the lifeblood of journalism, word of mouth, then social media is something that is emerged rapidly, and it's become very important because it's people talking. But instead of talking in the same room and talking in a pub or a cafe, you can now talk over the internet. So you can speak to people who are in Japan, in Australia, in India, in the Middle East. So you can have conversations with people and hear what people are saying anywhere in the world. And if you remember back in March 2011, there was a massive earthquake under the sea off the coast of Japan, which triggered a tsunami. For me personally, I was thinking that Japan is heavily reliant for its electricity on nuclear power, and by default, power stations are based around the coast, so I wanted to know which ones would have been affected. And on Twitter, I found a little tweet saying that the Fukushima power station's pumping system had failed, and I knew roughly enough of how nuclear power stations work, that if the cooling pump system fails, the clock starts ticking, it's in potential trouble. So I had this just a little piece of information from Twitter. I then phoned a contact in London who works in the nuclear industry, and I said, well, what does this mean? So I took just a raw piece of data, I ran it through one of my contacts, and he told me that within Japan, that if you have any sort of problem with a nuclear power station, then the Prime Minister has to declare a national emergency, because it gives the local administration the power to evacuate people, release resources to ensure that there are no massive problems, ironically. So that gave me my newsline, that I knew the Japanese Prime Minister was going to declare a national emergency. I know within the context there were big things happening in Japan, he had other things to worry about, but it was still a strong newsline. So I had advance warning that the Prime Minister's office would be making this statement. So off the back of that, I think, well, I've got time to find out more about Fukushima, and more to find out about what's there, what's the population like around the area. And so I prepared a story that as soon as that announcement was made by the Japanese Prime Minister, we could put that up on a website. We had a story ready to go. And that all came from Twitter, and it gave the BBC like a competitive advantage over its competitors. So it made us look more relevant and more on the ball. So to our audience, it made us a useful resource for a massive international story.